Ladies and gentlemen, I want to share with you the story of how I went from over $20,000 in debt to building a six-figure portfolio worth today roughly $150,000. Now, this happened over 5 years, and I want to share this story with you because there's a lot of new subscribers to this channel, and I want to show you something you can actually relate to and see what is possible out there. And I look forward to breaking this down for you, so let's jump right into this.
Drop it.
Welcome back, my passive income investors alike, to a story that's going to take us back over a decade ago from when I was like 19 years old. And one of my friends ignorantly convinced me to take out over a $20,000 loans to, chase my dreams of becoming a full-time magician. And one of the biggest learning lessons I had to pretty much come out of that was you don't need to take out a whole lot of money to start a business. I think it's just one of the most crucial mistakes. I mean, you can rent equipment, you can find the clients first. I mean, you do not just go out and buy a ton of stuff with no clients. Very, very dumb idea. But anyways, nonetheless, guys, I had to take all these different side jobs. I went out and I was hustling for tips to pay all of that loan back, which took me about 3 years, but it was very motivating and it kind of put me on the right path of, getting a hustle, getting into a grind. And once I got all of that done, it inspired me to look beyond my own business.
Since the beginning of time, there's only been those who believe and those who don't. Throughout our history, we have seen it inscribed about on pyramid walls, and modern cinema wouldn't even exist without it. But whether you believe in it or not, we all have to ask ourselves this one question: how does one truly define magic?
Let's go.
Ladies and gentlemen, he's been quoted the next illusionist of our time. From performing his master stage illusions for some of the biggest companies in Canada, to extreme stunts and even hypnotism. Please put your hands together for Kyle Livingston.
Once you've started a business successfully, you paid the loan back, and now you're actually making a decent income, you start realizing, heck, could I get involved in somebody else's business? And I was about 22 years old when my mom first introduced me to the stock market. Now, keep in mind, guys, I just paid my loan off. I'm now at like $0 dead even, and I'm just taking my money, terrified of the market. I approached it very cautiously. In fact, I started buying gold because if you guys are OG, like real OG to this channel, the first video I ever posted was me liquidating the last half of my gold that I was selling at one of the gold dealers. And it was purely because I realized, gold wasn't a good asset. It took me, let me not get too ahead of myself. Let's pedal back a little bit here. So my mom introduced me to the stock market, guys, and I completely fell in love overnight because I realized that I could have access to almost the entire economy at my fingertips, and instead of having to start something from scratch, I could just buy my way into it. Now, that was a very inspirational moment to me, and if there's something that I can share with you guys, you need to stop looking at the stock market as a bunch of ones and zeros and charts. You need to look at it as something that actually represents the entire economy, and you can buy into any sector, from the people that keep the lights on, the people that build the roads, your favorite coffee joint. It doesn't matter. You can pretty much have access to it, which is, a beautiful thing about living in Canada and the US, because keep in mind, places like Cuba, there's a lot of places in the world where they do not have publicly traded markets. Nonetheless, I started dabbling in with the first two stocks I ever bought. The first one being Northland Power, my favorite monthly paying dividend stock. And then on top of that, I bought a company called Canopy Growth Corp, and it was trading around $3 a share. And as the years went on, I kind of kept allocating a little bit of money to it, a lot of money to gold and silver. And within the first 3 years of my investing career, I'm going to say the first 2 to 3 years, I saved up somewhere between, I'm going to say $40,000 and $50,000, which was a very big moment. And again, I've never made more than $40,000 a year. So I was, living at home where I'm still living and being frugal as all hell, banking at least 50% of my income. So I was putting roughly, $20,000 to $25,000 away a year at this time. So it was really starting to fast track, especially when Canopy Growth Corp exploded back in 2018. That is what really launched my entire portfolio off, giving me one of the greatest capital gains I've ever experienced. And I actually made more money off that trade than I think I put in my investment account over the first 2 years. And I'm not advising anybody to get into some high risk plays. I got got very lucky with that one. But nonetheless, guys, there's one thing a lot of us pay attention to, especially when on the early on days, is dividends and your dividend growth rate. Because I remember in the first 2 to 3 years when I started getting up to that $500,000 in annual dividend income, I mean, I was so excited. I'm like, look, a free coffee every day for like, oh, look, I'm making $1,200 annually. I can go on a trip every year for the rest of my life. Imagine when you call into a radio station and you win one of those free trips. That's what it felt like, but now in perpetuity for the rest of my life. And I think once you start falling into this mode, frugalism just becomes a way of life because you just want to invest everything you can. Now, after Canopy Growth Corp exploded, obviously I started really dabbling into the whole investing thing, and then just one thing led to another. We've had this explosive market, and I've done nothing but watch my portfolio rally all the way up to where it sits today at that 150K mark, and we're just on year 6 of this. And again, guys, I've never made more than $40,000 a year. I live at home with my parents. I do everything I can to save money, because Canada's a little expensive. If I could afford a house, trust me, I'd love to buy one, but the average house in Ontario is like $600,000, so I need to move down to Florida or something where I can just outright own one. That's a segued story. That's kind of a segue, no, but getting back into this, guys. So Canopy Growth Corp pretty much explodes, and this wasn't before I started making my YouTube channel. I was still holding a lot of gold at this time, and then basically leading up to the end of, what was it, going into 2019 is when I decided to start this YouTube channel and documenting this, because I had a hard time learning this on my own because I didn't have that many influencers on YouTube, and I was kind of stuck messing around watching BNN, CNBC, and doing the best that I can, making my own mistakes, learning how balance sheets work. And then, some small YouTubers started coming up, people like Financial Education. There's Valuetainment was really popular back then. And, getting a lot of inspiration from people like Kevin O'Leary, Mark Cuban. I wanted somebody to talk to because I didn't have anybody. I mean, if you talk about stocks and finance already, I'm sure you are well aware of how hard it is to find a community based around that. Like, you're not just going to walk into people that are interested in that subject. So I couldn't convince my business partner at the time. I couldn't convince my friends. Like, it was just something that it was solely mine, and I had no one to connect with. So I'm like, you know what? I see these guys doing pretty well on YouTube. I want to kind of get involved in this community. So I launched this YouTube channel back in 2019 with the first video ever, guys, of me liquidating all of my gold, not just a few. I think all I have left right now, I think, is an ounce of silver or something. So a very, very tiny amount. A lot of people may disagree with the liquidation of gold, but if there's one thing that I've learned, that if I can get something to stick with you in this, guys, and I can make out a few points, again, you don't need to make a lot of money to do this successfully. Obviously, you have to be diligent. You're going to have to put the time and the work in if you want to have the kind of success that I'm experiencing at about a 15% to 20% rate of return a year. But in the same notion, when it comes to gold, the thing that I learned that I think was so much more valuable than gold is understanding how cash flow and equity works. If you can build cash flow, the equity naturally follows and you get rich. I mean, take a look at Jeff Bezos, guys. People are like, oh, he made $200 billion or something since this crash and blah, blah. It's because he has equity stake in Amazon. And the more money Amazon, makes, the more valuable the company is. And he's the biggest shareholder. So, I mean, at the end of the day, that's just how it works. You don't get that with gold. Gold does not cash flow, ladies and gents. So I decided when I started this YouTube channel, I was going to become 100% passive income focused, and I was going to become 100% focused solely on investments that will cash flow into my future, because I want to have the opportunity to retire by the time I'm 35. And I think we're fast tracking it in a way where I might even be able to get there faster. As many of you are aware, we are dabbling into websites. I mean, everything I've done since we started this YouTube channel has basically taken my cash flows from $500 a month to all the way up to about $1,500 a month. And that was all within the time period of starting this YouTube channel and me kind of documenting this. So it's so wild to me to look back and see how fast everything changes. And I'm so glad to have you guys here in this community, because you guys have made it incredible. And I'd love to shout out, people like Matt Money that I've partnered with. This guy living out in Trinidad in Tobago, working for the big oil company out there. And we clicked up and I met him for all of 5 minutes, and we went down these really interesting business endeavors. And even same with Captain Ryan from the Independent Investor. And then you also have J-Mac, Jason there. All of these guys have made this community so vibrant, and I'm so glad to be a part of it with all of you. And I know many of you are working hard on your financial independent retire early journey. So I'm hoping you're going to join me for the ride, and you're going to take part in this journey as well to, not only change your life, but inspire, educate, and help change other people's lives. And I'm just gonna finish up my walk because I'm heading up to the farm here, and there's a ton of sheep, and these things are usually pretty loud. If you guys want to take a look, maybe we'll see if we can get them sparking up here, because the second you get near them, they usually get loud. I'll show you guys this real quick. Actually, if you want to learn a lot about business, work on a farm. Whoa. See this guy? This guy's not camera shy at all. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Stay cool, stay awesome, and I'll catch you tomorrow.